Hello again. Today I'm going to be looking at putting some drawers under the stairs. So this is a set of small stairs, and in order to get to it in this house you have to go round through a cupboard at the back and crawl in under this small space, so it's not much good. So I figured put a couple of drawers in here. It looks like I can fit maybe 2 drawers side by side there, a short one and a slightly taller one. So the first thing I've done is remove this wally bit, and in this instance it was just plasterboard, so I could just take a hammer and a chisel and just chop it out. Fairly straightforward to do, but you must be careful that you don't take out anything structural. Obviously in this one you can see, you probably can't see it, but you can make out that there's a structural member that goes up into the wall there, and it's fixed at the post at the bottom. So there's a little bit of wood structure that was just there to hold the plasterboard. That was easy enough to take away. And you can see that the wooden structure actually was put in before the screed, so we've got all this gap. So first thing I'm going to do is fill this gap. Really it's just a concrete floor, so I'm just going to get some sand and cement, and I'm just going to fill that so that I've got a nice smooth transition. And the plan is to make a couple of drawers with some wheels on the bottom that will slide in here, and then I'll make a front piece so that it all looks nice. That's the plan. So let's get started. First of all, sand and cement mix, a bit of water, and I'll essentially make some mortar and I'll fill that gap. So here we are, 1 bucket full of sand and cement mixed with a little bit of plasticizer in. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to use my bucket trowel, so it's a trowel with a flat end, makes it easy to get stuff out of a bucket. I'm just going to put it in there, and then using my cheap float I'm just going to smooth it off. I suspect that the levels probably aren't the same anyway, so I'll do as good as I can, and then I'm going to put some sort of runners in for the wheels to run on. So off we go. So what I'm doing here is getting a small amount on the trowel, dropping it into the hole, and then you can see I'm just following along the line of the level, and just with a sort of a rough, lumpy sort of approach like that, which I can then smooth out later. So the thing's full now. What I'm doing is just going along like this and just getting the level approximately right, and then anything that's left can go back in the bucket. The reason I'm sort of waggling it and making it lumpy like this is if you just try and drag it, it just makes a mess. That's the official way of saying it. There we are. It's pretty much done. Now I can think about Okay, so measuring up relatively simple. And I measure the gap that I've got across here, and then the heights. Now I reckon I can, as I said, I think I can split this into 2 fairly big drawers. One's going to be this sort of height and go across there, and then one's going to be taller and go across there. And then obviously I'm going to measure how far back I'm going to go. Essentially it's going to be the distance across the stairs as it's going to go back. So that's the measurements I need. I can now go and make the drawers. So to make the drawers, I've cut out a piece of wood, cheap wood that I found in the back of the garage in this case, to match the size of the drawer bottom, and then I've got some much more expensive 18mm ply here, which I'm going to use for the sides, and I've got a bit for the front as well. So what will happen is that bit goes on there, like that, and I'm going to glue and screw down here and along to the bottom, and I'll do the same on the other 2 sides, and that'll be the drawer. So of course, before putting any bits of wood together and putting screws through, I'm going to drill some pilot holes. You should measure it, draw a line, put them along there, but I'm too lazy to do that. A set of holes, I'm not going to put too many, I'm going to rely on the glue to do most of the work. So just a few screws, hold it together, hold it together while I'm gluing it. There we are. I'll do the rest. So now I'm going to start off with the bottom corner, or this back corner here. What I'm going to do, standard bits of paper. I'm going to put the paper underneath here, which is where I'm going to do the gluing, and that will stop it from sticking to the wood underneath, stick it to the bench. What it will do is stick to the paper, but that's fine because the paper will just come off when I lift it, and I can peel the paper off and sand any bits off that's left sticking out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue along here, and I'm also going to put glue along here, and I'm going to bring the whole corner together in one operation. And of course the other thing I'm going to do is countersink the holes. It makes the screws just sit in a better way, not too much. There we go, which means the countersunk screws will sit nicely, so we're ready to go. So here we go. Before gluing anything, you should always try a dry fit first, just to make sure it's all good and you're going to be able to reach everything, and that there's no lumps and bumps that are going to cause problems. So that goes in there, that goes in there. That's the wrong way round. There we go. Perfect example of why you dry fit it. So I've now drilled the holes in the wrong place. No matter, I can hide that. So let's try again. Let's put 3 more holes and then off we go. So here we are, drilling the holes in the right place this time. And no one shouted, did they? Next time you're watching a video and you see me about to drill something in the wrong place, just shout so I know. Okay. I think these ones. And we are good to go. Quick clean up. Sandpaper just so we make sure smooth and nice. Just so there's no extra bits sticking out that are going to get in the way when we come to glue it together. Right, good to go. Let's start the process. So these two are going to go together and on there. So first thing we're going to do, glue along here, and then some glue along here. So there we go. Now I'm going to put it on the moving part because I've got less chance of getting it onto the floor, onto the paper if I do it from here. Chunk of glue there. Go the right way around again, which I haven't. That's the right way around. That's the problem when they're very close, when they're very closely together, closely sized, sorry, it's very easy to get mixed up. Right, and then some down there, as I've measured it, so that the 2 sides overlap the end. Right, let me put them in place. Let's stand up. Yep. Okay, now then. The hard part first, making sure it's all lined up, because once I put the first screw in, that's going to fix it. So that's had about an hour now. It's nice and sturdy, and we can stick the other side in. Make sure I've got the holes in the right place this time. Flip it over. There we go. And again, I've already been round it with a bit of rough sandpaper to make sure it's all nice and smooth, and this should. And again, I've got some paper down so it doesn't stick to the bench. That should all line up like that. Put some glue on, do up the screws, and I'll put the back in. Relatively straightforward. And there we go. That's one structure of a drawer finished. So now, in terms of wheels, I found these things on eBay or Amazon, and they're like two little wheels built into sort of a plastic case. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to work. They seem to slide about all right. So, because it's going to be onto mostly tiles and hard floors, it might be all right. What happens is there's a little sticky back. All you do is you stick it on. Let's do it here where you can see it. Just stick it on, and there you go, some wheels. So I'll put 4 of them on, and let's see how it works. So the next step here, I put some tiles in. These are some old tiles I had that were on the front step, but they're just the right thickness to take out this extra step. I'll pat you down a little bit that's on here. I've just put them where the wheels will run on the boxes. Now this is going to take the wheels from both this one, and this is just the one side. I'll need to put one more stripe in here to get that done. But first of all, I want to test it out, make sure that it's working properly. And this is just set in with your normal tile glue. So these are now dry. So here we are. I've got the first box in place, and as you can see, it's awful. It makes horrible grinding noise, and I've got a suspicion that the wheels are just staying still and just skipping across the tiles. It's really disappointing. See, it works, but it's not very good at all. So I think I'm going to have to rethink that. Okay, now that I've taken the box out, you can see what's happened down here. So the little wheels, and these feel really stiff, awful, but they've actually fallen off. The whole plastic front of the thing has fallen off, and this is not a particularly heavy box, so these things, nice idea, but terrible things. I have to get some better wheels. So back in the garage again, Amazon has provided some different wheels. So these are much bigger, they're much taller, so I'm going to have to watch the clearance on the top. And the 2 screw holes, and they're much smoother and bigger wheels. They feel a lot better, so we'll try these. So pan you down onto the existing one. What we're going to have to do is just get a chisel under these, fetch them off, and then we're going to attach these new wheels. So now then, here we are, new wheels, and look at that, so much better. That's the sort of thing that I'm looking for. So I'm going to come to the next stage, which is starting to put some wood around the edges to make it look nice. So now that I've got one of these in, what I'm going to do is put some wood around it. So I'm just using this chunky pieces of wood that I found in the garage. So I'm putting a piece across the top, which is going to essentially form the top section of it there. I've got a piece that I've attached. There's a piece of wood behind here in this case. I've been able to screw some wood to it. Now this is obviously going to depend on what your particular setup is. So I've put a piece of wood across there, which I've made sure is level. I'm now going to put a vertical piece in here. So what I've done is I've chamfered it to match the angle of this. All I did was held it up against this and drew a line with a pencil behind it and cut it to that line. So this is going to go there. I'm going to do this before I measure exactly for the other drawer, because this is obviously going to take up some space. I don't want my drawer to not fit. So if I angle you down a little bit more, you can see problem is there are tiles at the bottom, so you can't really drill holes into tiles in order to put a screw in. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use some of this stuff that's around at the moment. This is called Stix like, but there's a lot of these sort of fairly strong glues that you can get now. You can use them for doing things like hanging up curtain rails and things. So I'm going to use that, bit of that on there and there, and then with the help of Plumb Bob here, I'm going to make sure it's level, glue it in place, leave it to set, and then I'm going to measure and build the second drawer. So add some glue on here. Add some glue on the bottom. I don't want too much because it will splash out. Try and get this approximately in the right place in the first place. I don't want too much squodging out. Right, okay. Let's get plumb bob. And that's pretty much spot on actually. So you can see now that I've got wood all the way around these drawers now, so both drawers are in, and I've just put, we saw me put this wood in here, and I've put another piece across here, make sure it's all level, that kind of thing, and that's ready for the next stage now. As you can see, I've taken the drawers out, and what I'm going to do next is essentially some this is some very thin plywood, it's probably about 5mm, and I've cut these so that they now fit. So I've marked a line on here for it to fit against, and this will give me that 5mm step, but I'll hide that later. It's much easier if you try and fit it in so that it's dead smooth. You always end up with a line, and it's very difficult to do. So what we're going to do is put it on with a lip, and then I'm going to hide it. So that, now the trick here, I'm using thin wood, it looks flimsy, but because I've got this big wood against it, if I line that up with the heavier wood, when it's finished and painted, it will feel like this is the solid wood all the way through. It's kind of a little trick there. So put that in, and what I'm going to do initially is hold it in place just with a clamp like that, so that I can cut the next piece and the next piece. So I've got the next piece, this next piece cut already, so that's going to go in there. I can just check that it all lines up, and then when I'm happy, I can glue and use some very small nails to just fix these in place. So here we go with the first bit of glue in the right place. Just using this Titebond wood glue, nothing special, although it's good stuff if anybody feels like sponsoring me. So let's put this along here, just to hold it in place. I don't want it to be there forever. There we go. And then I can hold this in place and line it up, make sure it's lined up with this wood underneath, and then just some panel pins which I got from Screwfix, if anyone feels like sponsoring them. Oops, I'll just spill them on the floor. These are just tiny little ones, probably a bit too small to be honest, but I'll use them anyway. I'll just put one in. Okay, now that holds it in place, and I can now go around and just add the rest. I'm just going to the second one now. So I've attached it, put some glue in it, attached it with a G-clamp, and then I can go around and again just put the nails in. So now all the flat bits are in. I can see all I need to do is to hide this line now. And the plan, and this came off originally, and all it is essentially a very small bit of skirting board, and it was on here, as I said, so that just fits nicely on the top, and you can see that will hide that looks quite nice. But the second bit, which is already cut thankfully because it came off, but it's easy enough to do your own, and that will fit in there like that, and I'll just nail that on. So before I paint it, I'm going to clean up all these surfaces, so a bit of sandpaper, and also I'm going to put filler. There's lots of holes and things left over from where this thing came off, and also we've got a few of these nail heads are still sticking out, so if we take a nail punch, and they come in different sizes and shapes, we can just pop those nails back in so they're just below the surface, and then cover them with a bit of filler, they'll disappear. Now then, once all the sanding and everything's done, and this is looking nice, the final bits are these gaps where it meets the wall. Now the easiest thing to do is to use some of this decorator's cork, and essentially you can just put this along the gaps, so just easy as that, put it along the gap, and then take one regulation thumb or finger and you can just smooth it so that it looks nice. And I'll do that down here and down the other side as well. And any other gaps that you've got still showing, this is really good, and it just form a it's a bit like filler, but it stays fairly soft, so anytime there's movement due to heating and stuff, this should just stay there without cracking, so it'll make a nice joint along there. So I'll go around the rest and then that'll be ready for painting. So we're getting close to finishing now, but you can see there's still a gap all the way around here. Now I don't want to leave that gap because it'll look a mess, so what I'm going to do is to take a piece of MDF, something like 15mm thick, just bigger than the gap all the way around, and I'm going to stick it on the front of here to make a face plate. MDF's nice in that it's it's nice and smooth and it looks good. It's bad in terms of it's toxic when you cut it, so you do not want to be breathing in the dust. So first of all I'll do is I'll measure to get the size of this thing, and it's looking like it's about 23.5 inches. And then I'll stick it on there. Now I have to be careful because in the middle bit here both drawers will have a little bit sticking out, so I want to make sure I don't go too far across with it that it stops the other drawer and interferes with it. So I'm out here with the MDF ready to cut it. I've marked the line. I'm going to cut it with just one of these rip saws, partly because it makes less dust, and partly because you usually get a nice straight cut with it. If you use like a jigsaw all over the place, you're having to plane it flat again. So I've also got a decent quality mask. You must wear a decent quality mask because this dust is toxic. So here we go. Now what I want to do now, this is the front of the drawer. What I want to do is round off this edge to make it look nice. I'm going to do that using this router bit. So you can see the router bit is rounded, and it's also got a bearing on the bottom. And what I've done is clamped this onto a straight piece of wood like that, and the idea is the router will then, you see the bearing going along the wood whilst the cutter cuts the top part, and that way I'll get a nice straight line and be able to get that all the way along there. So this is the result. You can see a nice sort of whatever you call it, a nice edge on it there. Now it's not perfect because the bit of wood I had wasn't completely straight. That's the straightest bit I could find, so there we go. That's going to fit in there, and that's going to look quite nice. And when I glue it on, it'll be slightly raised, so there'll just be a gap above the floor for it to run on. Okay, so there's the first one, and it fits nicely there. So the next thing to do is to do the one for the smaller drawer. Okay, the two drawer fronts are done, looking okay. You can see what the overall effect's going to be like. The next thing to do is to attach it to the drawer. So what I'm going to do is pull the drawer out. Now obviously I don't want it touching the floor because it'll drag. So what I've got is a couple of clamps here. And what I'm going to do is just raise this up very slightly, a few mil, like that, and then I'm going to slide the drawer, and I can see it's still dragging there, so just raise it up a little bit more. Until it's running nice and smooth, And then you take a pencil and just mark where that's going to be. Now I'm going to screw the fronts on. I was originally going to glue them. Well, I think screwing them is going to be better because I can change it and adjust it if I get it wrong. Once you glue it, it's fixed. So let's take that and fix the front on. I'm back in the garage now. First things first, I want to find out how long the screws I need. So I'm going to put screws from the back into the front so that they don't show. I've got a bit of the MDF and I've got a bit of the wood that I used to make the drawer. And then using a vernier caliper. These are really, really useful tool to have. I got one with a little digital readout. And all I'm going to do, you can see that, I'm going to put that on there, and that'll tell me the thickness that I've got to play with, which is 30 millimeters, 3 centimeters, just over. So if I get a screw that is, as long as it's less than 30 millimeters, 3 centimeters, then I should be right. It won't poke out. Of course, I want it to go as far into the MDF as I can. If it's only just touching it, the front will fall off. It may be as well, I mean, MDF's not that dense, medium density, oddly enough. It may be that screws come out if I've only put about 4 or 5 in. If they do, then I'll have to glue it. But I'm going to try with just the screws and see how they last. So going through my box of screws, I found one here, 29.6, so hopefully that'll do it. So I'll drill some holes. Now that I know the width of this, so again, using the calipers I can just find out. And that's about 3.9 mil, so I can get a drill bit which is around about 4 mil, and I know that screw will pass through it. So here we are, this is the 4 mil drill bit. I might be tempted to use the 3.5, but that's gone away on a sky hook somewhere. I have no idea what I've done with it, so let's use the 4. Now all I'm going to do, it doesn't really matter where it is. Ideally I want some around the edges so that you don't get a gap at the edges once it beds in. But you know, before I put the screws in, I just want to make sure that this is all square, because I drew the line here, but there's no telling that that's completely square, and ideally I want it to be square to the drawer. So I've balanced this, so there's the MDF on the bottom and there's the drawer, and I'm just double checking that I've got the same measurement, 3.5 centimeters at both ends. I haven't, so I'm going to bring this in slightly. There we go. And I can also go all around the outsides and just check that the whole thing's square and the same distance all the way around, because I want it to be in the middle but with this appropriate offset. And if I have to move this, ideally I want to move the drawer down rather than up, and that way I won't be pushing the thing down, it won't drag on the floor. I'll have a bigger gap rather than a smaller gap. So here we are, put the drawer in. As you can see, it's nicely run, so this bit just skims without touching the floor, so that's nice. I've discovered that I just need to chop this top corner off as well, like I did on the other one, just to make it level. And also I'm going to sort out the handle next. Next thing I'm going to do is put a handle on this so that you can actually grab it with your fingers, otherwise it's going to be flat, smooth, you're not going to be able to pull the drawer out. And what I'm going to do is put this angle, I'm going to reverse it on the other side. So first of all, mark out the length of the handle, so I'm going to measure along here, find the middle, and then cut that groove as long as I need it. So you can see now that I've got this set up on my jig. Again, I've got a straight edge along here, so that when I put my rotor in, which is down here, it will run. Again, the bearing is going to run along the straight edge there, you can see, and this will cut. So what we're going to end up with is a second edge on this side. And here we have it, there's the second edge that I've just cut. We'll flip it round to the front. You see what we're ended up with is this groove, so when I come to open it, I get my fingers to make it work. So there's a little handle in place, you can make it out just right for opening and shutting. And if I pull back, you can see that both drawers are now in place with the little handle on, so they both work, and there we are. So that's that. All that's left to do now is clean them up a little bit and paint them. So painting is pretty standard. Coat of undercoat on the wood, coat a couple of coats of gloss, and that'll be job done. Okay, so that's all done and painted, and here's the finished product. See if we can get you in camera. So the drawers open and close quite nicely. They're quite big drawers, and the little one here opens and closes. So it's all working pretty well. I think we've probably put another coat of gloss on there, but that's done. So hopefully that was a helpful and useful thing. If you have a gap under your stairs that's difficult to reach, I encourage you having a go, and this seems to work quite well. And I'll see you next time.